Oh, wait. Now we can go. I'd like to welcome everybody to the June MLAC meeting. My name is Scott Strickland, and I'm the labor co-chair. I'll be chairing this meeting. As always, I'll start with an affirmation that we have, and then roll into the rest of our agenda. So we would like to thank everyone for their time, effort, and participation in our work for us today. We want to recognize that it's very difficult and important work, and we appreciate and value the perspectives and professionalism that everyone brings here today. Thank you. Starting off with roll call, Terry?
Sarah Merritt. Here. Sarah Duckwall is not here today. Co-chair Strickland.
Present by video.
Brian Kern is not here today. Margaret Liddell is not here today. Stacey Llewellyn is not here today. Emily Cronin, hey, I'm here. Co-chair Priest. Kim Schlesinger, present. And Director O'Day is not here with us today. We do not have a quorum.
All right, good to know. We will start off with, actually, I think what I will do is I'll start off with introduction of Fiona as well, because that seems appropriate. Hi, Fiona, I see you just jumped on video. Fiona has applied and is tentatively but not yet approved for the existing labor seat, I think, which is really exciting. I know that most of the time that I was on MLAC and that my predecessor Diana Winter was on MLAC, there was always a UFCW seat there to represent the interests of grocery workers and others, with a lot of kind of critically important engagement at Mahonia Hall and elsewhere from USCW and the folks that they represent. Speaking about, you know, my knowledge and experience professionally of working with Fiona, she's brought some amazing kind of diplomacy and professionalism and perspective representing the workers that UFCW 555 represents in front of MLAC, bringing forth issues and kind of testifying and advocating and being a part of the process. So really excited to have Fiona. You know, hopefully not approved yet, but I can't see what could go wrong there. Really excited to have you a part of the process. If you just want to kind of say hi and wave, you know, folks should know you as a stakeholder, and we'll get to know you as an MLAC member.
Sure, I'll just say really looking forward to joining you all. The Senate floor convenes tomorrow at 11, so fingers crossed that I am confirmed. But when I started my role at UFCW 555 5 years ago, I actually was working on workers' compensation issues, so I'm excited to get in the weeds with you all.
Great, well, welcome. It'll be really excited to have you a part of our group. Next up, public comments. I know we always kind of hold some space at the meeting. I didn't get a text with anyone signed up, and I don't see anyone jumping out of their seat to run forward for a microphone. So give it just one more second.
Nothing in the room, co-chair.
Okay. So we have a review of minutes up next, but I know we don't have a quorum, so there won't be anything that we can do with that. So, you know, if there's any questions, comments, or updates, please do get them sent in to Terry and Baba so they can take care of that. Aside from that, department updates, I'm showing none. Is that still accurate, Terry?
Yeah.
Okay. So next up, kind of the main event that we have, the MLAC roundtable discussion. So it's my understanding we're going to kick this off with a video, and then we can introduce Administrator West.
Workers' comp systems in the United States. There's a balance between what the employers are paying, the services that are being provided, and then the benefits that the employee receives. I think we've struck the right bargain and the right balance in Oregon. One of the most groundbreaking reforms was the creation of the Management Labor Advisory Committee, or MLAC. The governor and legislators looked to this committee for guidance on changes to Oregon's workers' compensation system. Continuing the legacy of the 1990 reforms, the committee is still made up of 5 members from both management and labor.
Whenever a bill is introduced that has to do with the workers' comp system, it's normally referred to MLAC first to see if MLAC can take possession of it. And if MLAC says, yeah, thumbs up, you think this is a good piece of legislation, it doesn't automatically mean that it's going to pass, but it has a pretty good chance passing. Whereas if MLAC said, no, this is a bad idea, then it usually doesn't get much legs.
The benefit of being in the MLAC system is that management and labor have to come together to talk about something. There's a lot of systems in which legislation is passed, there's maybe debates on the House floor and some behind the scenes activity, but there isn't the same public discourse that's required before a piece of legislation or a significant change can pass on to becoming implemented. I believe through MLAC process versus without MLAC, then I don't believe that there would be as many voices heard and as many perspectives for that process. MLAC provides that opportunity and then can provide information to our legislators to make policies. The committee is the reason Oregon has such a strong workers' compensation system. While businesses pay some of the lowest rates in the country, injured workers get some of the most robust benefits, and everyone gains from strong safety measures and an overall reduction in injuries. The Management Labor Advisory Committee ensures balance, so no single narrow agenda can drive changes to workers' compensation. It's a system that works for everyone.
I hope MLAC stays in place, and I would hope that people from both sides of the aisle that come sit at the table, their intent, their desire when they sit at that table is to do the right thing for the workers' comp system.
Our predecessors really dug in and figured out this is how we want the system to work. And so for those of us on MLAC, for those that come after the current members, it's just so key that we continue to keep those tenants in mind as we go forward. It's tantamount to our being able to maintain the system for things.
Thank you. Online, the video was a little bit laggy, but I can guarantee that if you go to the website and view it yourself, it is very well done. And the audio came through nice and clear for at least for me online. So next up, I see Administrator West is going to kick off the roundtable discussion with a little background on MLAC.
All right, first I want to thank those of you who came from the OSHA conference to attend. Probably like, why am I getting dragged into this workers' compensation meeting? We'll give you a little more information, and you should have got train tickets. So that's the part of the reason you're here. Speaking of that, I do want to thank the sponsors that donated to the refreshments and social hour we're going to have with Safe Corporation, UA 290, and the Oregon State Building and Construction Trades Council. So they donated so that we could have this social hour after and entice people into the meeting. So you saw from the video a little bit about MLAC. I'm going to give a little bit more history about MLAC, but without putting you to sleep. So it is a unique part of the Oregon's workers' compensation system, and it's a reason why the system works. It's a forum for business and labor to meet and discuss workers' compensation issues collaboratively. So you saw from the video in 1990 or prior to 1990, Oregon was one of the most expensive states in workers' compensation, one of the most expensive systems in the nation. I feel like, have any of you seen the Hunger Games? Remember that movie Hunger Games, when they start and there's like war, famine, and then like the district say, so it's like. So like prior to 1990, it was like, the Hunger Games, and then the reforms happened, and it stabilized the system. At the time in the 90s.
Yeah.
What's
It's
that?
not exactly good. It's not a good
Okay.
story.
We're not doing a repeat.
Stabilizing the system.
You get what I was saying.
I'm just.
So yeah, so it was so, the system was so out of whack at the time that, the Governor Goldschmidt, called a group of, that represented workers and employers to Mahoning Hall, which is the governor's, residence, to help fix the system. And then the changes, were developed by that group, and then there was a one-day special session on May 7th of 1990. You probably remember that day. I remember two core memories for me from the 90s. One, O.J. Simpson speeding down the freeway in the white Bronco, and two, the Mahoning Hall reforms on May 7th of 1990. Saw some of the footage. So those changes did become known as the Mahoning Hall reforms, transformed the system to one of the most successful. And a couple of things that came out of those reforms. One was the creation of MLAC. The other, a couple others, the creation of two advocates for workers and employers. One is the Ombuds Office for Oregon Workers. I think Barb Anderson, who's the current ombuds, is online, and then the Small Business Ombudsman, Caitlin Breitbach, she is the Small Business Ombudsman. Helps advocate small businesses that are having issues within the workers' compensation system. So both of them are, those offices were created and are a key part of the system. Also, the Preferred Worker Program, which is one of Oregon's nationally recognized return to work programs, and Zoe Takadina is here representing that program. Also, if you're at the conference, there's a booth. I don't know, are you speaking or not? Not at this conference, but there's a booth. I encourage you to learn about that program. And then, like I mentioned, the formation of MLAC. So the committee is made up of 5 labor representatives and 5 management representatives who provide advice to the Oregon legislature and the governor about legislation and other proposals to change the workers' compensation system. They're nominated by the governor and then confirmed by the Senate. That Fiona, she had her Senate hearing yesterday, and then the full Senate will meet tomorrow to vote confirm her as a member of MLAC. So really, if a bill or a law change is introduced that affects workers' compensation, it comes before this group, before the legislature will give it serious consideration. When MLAC is reviewing proposals, they have a set of guiding principles. So they're looking at balance and fairness to make sure that the proposed change meets the needs of both workers and employers. Adequacy, affordability, efficiency, stability and flexibility, and predictability. So looking at any changes need to kind of meet that criteria. We'll talk with the members here in a little bit about how they use the guiding principles in the work that they do. They meet monthly. During the legislative session, they'll meet more often, sometimes weekly, to discuss bills, depending on how many bills there are that are proposed related to workers' compensation. They can also form subcommittees. Last year, they took that ability to form subcommittees a little too seriously and formed 2 subcommittees, and we ended up meeting all summer, 18 meetings. Summer of subcommittees was 2025. But out of those subcommittees, some really important changes to workers' compensation happened and passed in the 2026 legislative session. So this particular MLAC group is also interested in getting out to different communities around the state to hear from workers and employers about their experiences, challenges that you have in the workers' compensation system, and that's why they're here today. Last year, we did a similar meeting in Bend with one of the OSHA conferences. In May, they're out in Wilsonville. We had a workers' compensation conference, and then they're out here in Pendleton this year to hear from you all. So like I said, as I mentioned, they want to hear from you. So we're going to give them a chance to introduce themselves, talk about the industries that they represent, how they ended up on MLAC, and while they volunteer their time. There's a management co-chair and a labor co-chair. So Scott, who's up on the screen right now, is the co-chair for the labor caucus, and then Patrick Priest is the management co-chair. So we'll go ahead and start with them, have them introduce themselves, and talk a little bit about their background, why they're on, and why they serve on MLAC.
I'll let go ahead, Patrick. I was gonna say I'll let Patrick go first.
No, you should go first. You're the chair. You go first.
So hello everyone, Scott Strickland, he, him pronouns. I'm the Special Projects Counsel for Smart Local 16, representing just over 2,000 sheet metal workers across most of Oregon and a chunk of Southwest Washington. For those of you who don't know, sheet metal workers do a variety of different things, including architectural metal, kind of exterior metal work and flashing, gutters, downspouts, and then also a ton of HVAC work, vents and other things, within a house or building. And then we also have a heavy production side that does a lot of kind of heavy industrial fabrication work. So kind of a really broad range of all the risks that you see in the construction and industrial industries. I've been on MLAC for, I think, 6 years at this point. Started off as just a member, came on, Diana Winter kind of convinced me to show up to a meeting where there was, I think, a contentious issue about between I think it was OTLA as kind of stakeholders on one side and SAFE as stakeholders on another, and they were, kind of going back and forth about an issue, and there were only a couple of us in the audience where you are now, and some of the staff and the members just said, "Oh, come on, everybody, come up to the table," and so they had this big kind of square table set up where we all got to then sit there and get involved in the discussion, and it was really great that it drew you in, and it drew in the different stakeholders and the folks that engage in this all the time, and you had 4 or 5 different perspectives arguing from all different angles on an issue. And so at that point I was hooked, of course, really interested in this kind of diverse group of folks that come together to address really contentious issues in a kind of pragmatic way. So that's sort of how I ended up on MLAC, and one of the main reasons why, representing all the workers, sheet metal workers and other folks in the construction industry and workers just generally. I'm also a medically stationary worker, so I had a workplace injury at when I was in the field a little over 10 years ago at this point. And that was, very difficult to go through and navigate, even with a law degree, to navigate that system that they had, and MCO enrollments and everything else was very complex, and really gave me some perspective on, if I had all the advantages that I did, given my background and, proficiency in the English language and writing ability and all of that, still struggled very, very hard through that process. So I think that's kind of who I am, what I'm trying to bring to the table, the perspectives that I like to represent, and why I serve on MLAC. So Patrick.
Thank you very much, Scott. So I'm Patrick Priest. I'm the co-chair for the management side of MLAC, and I have been on MLAC a little bit less than Scott, about 4 or 5 years. I'm in my second 3-year term right now, and I was brought to MLAC by my predecessor. My predecessor had this role, and she was retiring. She said, "You should do this," and she asked me like 3 or 4 times after she retired to make sure I would do it. She served on MLAC as a retired person, so she was ready to be done. But it is interesting work, working with workers' compensation and safety. So I am the executive director of CIS, and CIS is the risk pool, the coverage self-insurance vehicle for cities and counties all across Oregon. So almost all of them, except those that are self-insured. So I represent cities and counties that have been doing that for a long, long time as employers. And so that's my perspective as management, as local government. And, they're really hurting right now. So I know I really try to speak up for them and know that a lot of things like presumptions, the presumption of workers' compensation is quite expensive for cities and counties, and try to make sure that when those are put in place, they're really appropriate, because that is millions and millions of dollars. That's something that's real important to me. But just being on the management side, my own background, my grandmother, my mother, both were small business owners, and so just people that just do the best they can as an employer and employ people I really feel like I'm fighting for them as well. You know, it's really about people, and it's about the injured worker, but it's also about the people that run the business as well. So that's what brings me here. You know, CIS is insurance, and so my background is workers' compensation insurance over the years. We work with SAFE at CIS, but we provide safety and risk management services to cities and counties. So even though I have many, many years of experience in workers' compensation, almost 30, I learned so much and I get overwhelmed by all the levels of detail that we are presented in these bills. And it's a lot. And so I have grown to appreciate being in it so long and being in another state in Colorado where they don't have an MLAC. And knowing how workers' comp legislation is so dense and people are asked to make decisions on it, with just very limited information, it really makes me appreciate the value of the system. Because even us, as we sit for hours and hours reviewing it, it's a lot. And so, and it makes me feel really good that we're making good decisions for that balance between management and labor. So that's what brings me. So I don't know, I guess Emily.
I guess I'll go. Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Cronin. I work for the Oregon Nurses Association. I am, I think, like the healthcare labor representative, if you will. I am also an RN, and so I have a shared background. I work in representing about 24,000 unionized healthcare workers in the state of Oregon. We're the largest healthcare union in the state. We're also Oregon's professional association, so there's a compounding between understanding the regulatory compliance of the work that we do, but then also just helping our members navigate issues with their employers and things like that. Additionally, I am a hospice nurse. I work per diem out in the community in the Portland metro area. I've been doing community-based care since I moved to Oregon in 2019, which gives me a very unique perspective, I think, in some of the risks that maybe aren't spoken about as much for the type of injuries or incidents that injured workers may experience in that care setting, because it's very autonomous and a little bit less controlled. I lovingly came to MLAC being voluntold, right? We at ONA want to elevate nurses into positions of advocacy and participation in civic duty and just policy. Sometimes our nurse member leaders are busy doing other things, and so we get the opportunity as nurse practice consultants to step in to support that. I knew nothing about workers' compensation before I came. I know maybe less now. Like the more you learn, the more you can learn. But I'm like fiercely curious and incredibly interested in understanding the system, and having a background in healthcare and especially community-based care, where a lot of the documentation and sort of the follow-up is a little bit more cumbersome or multi-layered. There are things that I can see from understanding how healthcare works in other settings that I can offer solutions that maybe are small fixes, but make a difference in the life of a injured worker's path through the system. I'm also really fiercely, I don't know, I guess I'm really passionate about access to care. Our state has a lot of issues, all states do. We are poised to do big things in the workers' compensation space in trying to solve some of the access to care problems we know of, and the ones that we can see coming down the pike. And being able to improve access to care, align it with policy, make sure that it can be right by our communities, will then hopefully snowball into solutions in other healthcare spaces. And so I'm the one always asking questions. I'm the one always wanting to learn more. Poor Terry. So that's why I'm here. And that's why, I mean, that's why this is important. So I'm glad to be here.
My turn. Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Schlesinger, and I represent Samaritan Health Services on the management side here at MLAC. And my term began in February 24. And at that time, I think they were looking for a healthcare representative to fill the spot here at MLAC. And at the time I was working, I did retire last year after working for Samaritan for over 30 years. And I started as the employee health nurse practitioner for, at the time it was Good Samaritan Hospital, and I treated injured workers. That was my my main focus was to treat injured workers, give them, put them on light duty, get them back to work. Also was involved in all of the employee safety programs, all the OSHA regulated safety programs, safety committees. So I had a good background with that, and also workers' comp. My department did oversaw the workers' compensation. So I have the injured employee perspective, and then also on the management side, I have the workers' compensation. We work with our brokers, we work with SAFE. And when the call kind of came out of, we needed somebody to fill this, and I think Terry, you had contacted one of our administrators, and they thought of me, and I thought, hey, that's kind of interesting. I haven't done that part of, workers' comp and employee safety yet. And it's been fascinating to be on this kind of legislative side of things and to learn that about all the different, or how that's built, formed and voted on. And I think just the process of getting on this committee was really interesting, going in front of the Senate and being appointed. So when I retired, I really wanted to complete my term, which would end in, I think, 27, so I have another year, and got permission from Samaritan to continue on this program with this committee, because it's so important. And so I am here to do that still, and it's been great to meet everyone and to meet also people in the community. So that's my story.
Hi, Sarah Merrick. I'm one of our labor representatives. I'm just starting my second term. I have been a firefighter paramedic for the city of Salem for 19 years. So yes, I'm actually on the truck, pulling hose, going into fires, doing CPR and rescuing people. And why that's important is I represent our first responders, police, fire, EMS, dispatchers, all those type things. And so like Patrick, presumption is important to me too. I look at the people behind who presumption is designed for and the risks that folks, we want folks here to be able to go into the exposures that we see out there of toxic environments, hazardous environments. We need the people to come behind us and fill those positions. And so taking care of our workers is really important. We do have to find the middle ground. That is also incredibly important to have the system that we do in having low cost but high coverage. And so yeah, being able to work with each other, even if we don't always agree, is super important. So I represent our first responders and learned a lot in this committee, and I'm really excited to continue the term.
Great, thank you. And I'm gonna go ahead, also want to introduce Terry. You want to say Terry Watson? She's the MLAC administrator.
I don't really want to say.
So the Workers' Compensation Division, we help support the work of the committee. So Terry, helps put all these meetings together, works with the co-chairs on setting the agenda, does a lot of the work to make sure that we have these successful meetings. Occasionally rips the cord out of the wall. And then in the back, I just want to recognize.
At least once, yeah, as needed.
Baba Ampa, she helps support, also helps set the agenda, does the meeting minutes, and then James, who's doing tech support. They work for the division, we help support the committee so they can do the important work that they do. So we have a few minutes. Wanted to see if anybody in the audience had any questions for the committee. If not, I have some canned questions I can read. Just not a requirement. All right. Did you have a question?
Yeah, you have to ask a question to get your drink.
If you want your certificates, you have to ask a question.
Okay, so a couple questions I can throw at some softballs your way. How does MLAC decide on what issues to look at?
I guess I can answer, Scott. It's just that they're given to us. We get legislation that they are considering, and that is our agenda. That's what we review. But an exception to that is we do a work plan where we come up with topics that we feel are interesting and we look at. I know Emily has been very vocal about access to care, and we put some topics related to that on our work plan. And so that is the work that we do when the legislature's not in session.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, that we do have the ability, as we hear from stakeholders, common threads or issues that are escalating, we are able to either put that on the work plan or to have conversations in the meetings and set subcommittees to kind of broaden maybe within reason some of that. So we are able to bring related issues forward and look at then how it relates to the legislation. So it's not, we do get the ability to squawk. Or maybe we didn't before me and now we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really stakeholder driven. And that's one of the things that I find really unique about MLAC is we are just sort of facilitators in a sense, even the work plan that we have, it's kind of a discussion of what stakeholders do we need to activate, who do we need to reach out to kind of drive a lot of that work that we're hearing about, but maybe in our respective roles and day jobs, but aren't necessarily seeing in front of MLAC. So I think that's one of the real unique things to me is the level of stakeholder engagement and how much we depend on them, not just to kind of bring things forward, but to then do the work as well.
Yeah, so a couple of you mentioned stakeholders, so specifically, how do you work with and involve this, our stakeholders in the MLAC process?
They can help provide us background to some of the issues, whether it's information on the impact maybe, what maybe some of the research or studies behind different driven topics are. And it's important on both sides because we have to understand what the cost on either way is. And so those are great reasons to use our stakeholders and listen to them and hear from them.
Robert, you have a question?
Yeah, whenever you're done, I didn't want to ask the question, but I guess I'm going to, because it's kind of related to what you're talking about. How do you guys like advertise these meetings? It seems, I mean, there's a decent crowd here, but I mean, I didn't know about MLAC for years, and I've been in union leadership for over 2 decades, and I can tell you, I recently learned about MLAC. And I still don't know what it is, right? Like what you said, I'm probably more confused now that I'm here than I was right here.
Again, the misstep. The more you learn, the more you can learn.
Yeah, is it designed to be like this difficult? Because I can tell you there's a ton of workers out there that are struggling to navigate the system. As Scott said, like, why aren't we advertising this in the community more? Why isn't this, like I said, I guarantee there's people in these local unions that are injured that are struggling. And as business agents, we're not experts in that field, right? We can show them who to call, where to go. Even though some of our agents try to play experts in that field, we wear many hats. But I think, so yeah, I'm curious, like, where do you advertise these meetings? Because I didn't know, if I didn't know people that are involved with this, I would have never known this meeting was here. In fact, when I got here, I was lost. I wandered around several rooms before someone realized, oh, you're looking for MLAC. And I said, yeah, and certainly like, you gotta be easier to find.
Yeah.
You gotta advertise this. I can't imagine there's no injured workers within like a 50-mile radius of Pendleton that wouldn't have loved to have been here to ask questions, right?
Yeah, sure, it's great. Yeah.
So a couple of things. I heard a couple different things that I would agree with you on all points. First and foremost, right, like there is clearly an issue with our ability to connect with the community, which is part of this whole process, right? Like this is one of the goals that we have. We can come, people hopefully attend. In many of our meetings, we have 50+ stakeholders that are participatory. Injured workers are always welcome. But as somebody who works both in a union and in healthcare space, the bombardment of potential resources that are available to you at any given time, it almost becomes too much. And I'm not saying that MLAC we cannot do a better job to continue to participate and connect. But when you are an injured worker, when you are working through a healthcare space, like it's confusing no matter where you are. And so we're just trying to look at in what areas we can offer ourselves up in more regularly. We're talking about this. We have we as a committee want to learn more about the system as well, like how the different stakeholders like OSHA and some of the regulatory systems around OHA and things like that, how they all intersect, but we all come to this from our own individual industry. None of us are experts in workers' compensation either. And so trying to just bridge that gap at the same time of navigating it within the already confusing healthcare space is like baby steps. Like, we're doing what we can.
So I guess back to my question, where do you advertise for these meetings? That was like the root of my question. Where do you advertise? How do people know that these are open to the public? And where are you announcing? Because like I said, if I don't get communication from certain people, I would have never known this was happening.
Yeah, you, go ahead,
So, they do go out on Gov Deliberate, and we have, Bob, don't we have like 2,500 people on that listserv? Cause they are public notice, and we do have to public notice every meeting. And so before I came out here, I emailed Senator Nash, Representative Levy, and I talked to the chamber director and tried to get the message out there. Unfortunately, because it was a legislative interim day, they're over there and we're over here. So that was, but they promised to get me a list of people that I could connect with their constituents, and they didn't. So, I mean, sometimes those things just fall through the cracks, but we do have a large group of people that do respond to the Gov Deliberate. And then the other person I would say is the ombuds for injured worker, and she is traveling here as we speak. She texted me and said, I'm in, she's up there, Barb Anderson, but she's still not here yet. So she's the other person that would connect a lot with injured workers, I would say. It doesn't, and
It kind of ties into stakeholder feedback, right? Like if stakeholders aren't here, then where are you getting feedback? Like you gotta have the stakeholders in the room to hear from the right. And the other question, are you advertising in different languages out there, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of Spanish speaking workers tend to kind of shut down and don't know where to look for. And I know because there's a situation that just reminded me, there was a couple iron workers that traveled to another state with a contractor, and their business agent was calling me like, hey, what do we do? This contractor's from Oregon, they're injured, they're being sat at home. Nobody wants to take responsibility. What do we do? The worker left here with that contractor. And I'm like, I don't know. You just gotta call the business agent down there and see if there's some help, someone, and like, and there's no literature to provide for them that he knew, so.
Yeah, and I'll just say, Robert, thank you. You bring up a great point, and one of our biggest challenges, not just with MLAC, but with workers' compensation, right? Those of us that are in it, like, we know what's going on. Most people don't care about workers' compensation until they're injured, and then all of a sudden they're like, tell me about this workers' compensation. So, you know, anybody that has ideas on how we can continue to spread the word.
That's why I didn't wanna ask this question,
Yeah.
because they could go on over beers and everything.
Yeah, well, there you go.
But it's real,
But
it's
it's
real.
Yeah, it is. And we have, you know, part of it, and this is the first MLAC group that I've been a part of, that's like, we want to get out in the communities, to your point, to actually hear the challenges in Eastern Oregon are different than the challenges in the metro area or the challenges in Southern Oregon or Central Oregon. So that's kind of part of what we're trying to do. We've partnered with OSHA for these conferences to try to, you know, get people that are, you know, already at the conferences.
Didn't even know that conference was happening either.
Yeah, well, we're talking to OSHA about their.
I walked into that.
Yeah, well, and so yes,
That's-
ideas on ways to advertise, and really, it's a challenge that we run into at the Workers' Compensation Division. There's three things that I mentioned earlier about some of the reforms to workers' compensation. We have the Small Business Ombudsman Office, Ombuds Office for Oregon Workers, who are advocates for those workers and can answer those questions on like, how do I navigate the system? I know they're out traveling the state, trying to go to conferences and trying to get the word out. So as much of any ideas, or if they're local, I don't know if they're, I don't know if people read the paper anymore. What if there are local media or
TikTok.
social media? Yeah,
Are we advertising on?
there we go. We need to update our advertising.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah. Real quick, just 1 second, Barb. But one of the other things, you know, is our preferred worker program. In Oregon, we have some of the best return to work programs for injured workers, where if someone's injured, there's a program that can buy them tools, clothes to get back to work, and offer money in the form of subsidizing the wages to employers to incentivize them to get their workers back to work. And they travel the state, and when they, to your point about the injured workers in just a 50-mile radius, they'll send hundreds of letters to every injured worker in our system that's the preferred worker to try to get them to, you know, come to these workshops, and we went up with like 5 or 6. So we're still trying to overcome that challenge of how do you get the word out. I think people see workers' comp and like, okay, I don't want to learn about
I
that.
think
But
the
it's
hours are
really-
great. The hours accommodate if you're working, even on light duty, so.
Yeah.
The hours are great, you guys got that down. The venue's great,
Yeah,
it's nice to move it around the state, just gotta get it out.
yeah. And Barb,
Yeah.
when she's the.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah, go
I-
ahead, Barb.
it's on safe driving mode, so I can't, I can only do so much. But this is Barbara Anderson, the Ombuds for Oregon Workers, and I just wanted to say that, you know, we, as Matt said, we have really struggled with being able to, you know, I guess get a hold of workers or notified workers that were here. So we spent quite a bit of money the last few years with billboards and news interviews on KATU and you know, Facebook, social media, all kinds of stuff. We in Spanish and English. We've really tried. We even traveled the state. So we're trying to, but like Matt said, nobody really cares about workers' comp until they're injured, and by then it's kind of like, where do I go? So we're more than willing to go travel, to come down and see you and do some training, do some virtual training, just send you some pamphlets, whatever it is you guys need. So we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Certainly not.
I think-
Motivate.
Yeah, I think this is a good example of a lot of the work that we've done. I know stakeholders have brought forth a lot of concerns about like inclusion of social security numbers and other things on the Form 801, making it less accessible to folks, and talking about development of Spanish language materials, both kind of for the website, for a lot of the documents, and then having as much as we can do with using pictures and other things for wayfinding through the process. Sort of, you know, you are here in your claim, and then these are the sequences for the things coming up. I think I'll admit, I think we've only kind of dipped our toe in what's possible. And I think Robert, you brought some great points about making sure that, you know, we're out there trying to reach out to folks that we have not been in contact with previously. But I think we are pretty committed to doing that. But as Administrator West said, you know, this is sort of early days in our outreach to communities and actually getting not just hosting everything in Salem and having all our meetings in Salem and focusing on the legislative, but sort of branching out, going into the community, saying like, with the access to care issues that you're seeing with providers, with, you know, other concerns that folks have, how can we sort of address that and incorporate a lot of those concerns into the work plan to kind of push stakeholders forward to engage further. And I know that we recently did a pretty good like perspectives of the work comp system. So we had, you know, an injured worker panel, one of whom I think, you know, we had a DCBS did a great job bringing in a translator to help with the testimony there, and then had kind of management and insurer panel, and I think still waiting on the regulatory one to hear some perspectives from folks within DCBS. But you know, good points. I think more can always be done, but I know that we are excited about some of the first steps that we're taking to do a lot of that work. But appreciate the encouragement to continue on that path.
It's stakeholder feedback, and I wasn't criticizing.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's just great feedback.
You asked open questions.
Yeah,
It's
no,
my time to engage. But if it wasn't for Scott and Terry, you guys promoted hard, and like, I don't know if everybody in our circle or our arena would know about this. So I mean, Scott and Terry do a great job of promoting it in the trades.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. So, but I can see there's some gaps. For sure, there's gaps. And I think you all are doing a great job, because we're all, you know, everybody expects so much from our offices, and we only have so much capacity, right? So much bandwidth. So I appreciate you all doing. But yeah, look forward to continue to be supportive and helpful however I can.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate the feedback. It's great. Any other questions or no? Or are we good on time, or do I have time for another one, or?
We are, what'd you say?
I think he has time, doesn't he?
No,
I don't think.
I don't know. I'll ask one.
We have 30 seconds, and then you're cutting into the drink time, but
Okay.
I don't have any drink tickets, so it doesn't bother me.
Those of us in the room are ready. Okay, so quick question. What happens when MLAC can't reach an agreement either within a caucus or between caucuses? I think we learned the plural on the last caucuses.
I was gonna say some sort of effective to death would be, yeah.
So if, you know, we're supposed to come to agreement to support something, if we don't agree, then we don't support it, you know, issue a letter of support. And as I understand it, that's something that would limit a bill's ability to pass.
I think that, yes, and we also, if we can't come to agreement within the time frame, all seem to be very open to, I don't wanna say the word, subcommittee it, or to approach another avenue to continue that conversation until we can find agreement. We don't ever wanna postpone legislation that is, you know, ready to go, but we're also not willing to sort of push or refuse until we really do feel strongly that we have agreement. If we're not in agreement yet, then it's not over, essentially, is how I've noticed it in just the year that I've been.
I think that work plan is things we didn't come to agreement on.
Yeah.
Good example of that was the time loss benefit that came up, a proposal, and, it's like in theory, we agreed with it, but there were differences between the labor and management of how that, you know, how that looked, and so, it was kind of tabled and a subcommittee was formed to really like work it out and, worked really hard last summer to come to like a mutual agreement. So I thought that was a really good collaborative process between the two groups.
Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to the way that I view MLAC as, I mean, it's not non or bipartisan, it's kind of multi-partisan, but we all agree to work together on issues because you have, you know, labor, which is not always aligned on issues. And then you have the sort of stakeholder groups that also represent and support labor, like our friends at the Trial Lawyers Association and others that, you know, aren't actually labor necessarily, but work with labor and advocate for labor issues a lot of times. And then you have management, and there's a variety of interests, you know, with self-insureds versus other folks, and small business versus, you know, medium or and larger business, and then all the insurers and the work that they do. That you have, you know, 8 or 9 interests at a table at a given point, and then the impacts on the state and local government and everybody else. There's, you know, 10 or 12 different interests being balanced and juggled, and perspectives that we have on that. And I think that the sort of, you know, we talk about MLAC 2.0. I think things got really antagonistic in during COVID, and there was kind of a reshuffling of MLAC and the way that we approach things and the work plan, and the handbook and a lot of that stuff that came out that really sort of tried to get back to being more collaborative and pragmatic on issues, and saying that anything that we do is going to have a huge impact for everyone involved, and will sort of echo and ripple out and boomerang back on a lot of times folks that think that something may be a good idea. So it's in our interest to work together and make sure that we are striking a path forward that is something that, you know, folks are uncomfortable with, sure, but that we can all go down together, understanding as much as possible what that's going to look like. So I think that's really been when I first got on and things were antagonistic, and there was, you know, split votes on things repeatedly, and sort of letters balancing the interests of, you know, this is what our perspective is and we disagree with them, this is what our perspective is, we disagree with them, and that didn't really move. We weren't able to move forward on issues in a constructive way. And to Patrick and our management members' credit, currently I think that they've done a really good job of working with us, and I think, you know, we on the labor side commit to trying to match that and do that as well, more so than maybe it has happened in the past.
We're good.
So not seeing any other questions, and I know we're cutting into the important social hour. Thank you, Administrator West and MLAC members, for the discussion. Thank you for the audience participation. Robert, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair or co-chair.
Looking at upcoming meetings, we have no meeting in July, and then on August 6th from 10 a.m. to noon, we have a virtual meeting. So want to thank everyone who made the trek, and thank all of the folks locally that showed up. My apologies that I wasn't able to be there in person, but hope that you have a very productive and interesting social hour.
You will be
Thank you,
missed.
Co-Chair.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much.
Have a good night, Scott. Thank you.